Hello friends, for today's video I'm going to be looking at book covers that look almost identical or really strangely alike. And I'm not talking about book covers that follow similar genre trends. For example, in fantasy you often see books that have weapons on the covers, things like that. I'm not talking about that, and I'm not talking about books within the same series. I'm talking about books that sometimes aren't even in the same genre, or books that are very much in different series and their covers look almost exactly the same. So much so that typically, if you show me these when I don't have any glasses on, I might think that you're showing me the exact same cover, but fortunately for me, I work with GlassUSA.com, so I have glasses that I can use to see the specifics and then tell, oh, those are actually different books. And speaking of GlassUSA.com, they are kindly working with me for today's video. That intro was, I know, very silly, and also it kind of gave me a little bit of a headache because I legitimately have really terrible eyesight, but a big thank you to GlassUSA.com. I've been working with them for years. Many of you know I absolutely love their service. They take the middleman out of the equation, so they're much more affordable. They deliver directly to you. You don't have to leave your house. It's very convenient. They have a virtual try-on feature where you can just go online. It's not even an upload a picture of yourself format anymore. You can literally just have your camera and you can look and it will show you what the glasses will look like on you, whether you're moving or you're sitting still. And so the virtual try-on feature has been taken to the next level. Also, of course, not all of us can remember our prescription or remember where we put our prescription, and they make it very easy by having a feature where you can scan your glasses and it will figure out your prescription for you. And then of course they have a variety of different shapes and sizes. They have in-house brands, name brands, so many different selections. You can get prescription sunglasses, you can get regular sunglasses, you can even get non-prescription regular glasses if you just like the look of it. And they even have contacts available if you're not really a glasses person, but you are looking to try to make your eyesight a little better and be discreet about it.
GlassesUSA.com is offering a great exclusive discount on top of any coupon code they currently have on the website just for all of you. It's only available for 24 hours, so if you click on the link in the top of my description box, you'll get all the details. Once again, a big thank you to GlassesUSA.com for sponsoring today's video.
Jumping into the covers, I'm going to start with a new book that is coming out called Silver in the Bone. I'm going to be looking at the images a lot, so I'll be looking down quite a bit, but Silver in the Bone by Alexandra Bracken, and then Blade Breaker by Victoria Aveyard. When I saw the cover for Silver in the Bone, I saw a few people saying they think it's going to be in subscription boxes. There's going to be special editions of it. And I was like, didn't that book already come out? And when I realized, oh, it's not the other one, I thought that at the very least it must be in the same series. And then I realized one of them was by Alexandra Bracken and one of them was by Victoria Aveyard. So again, I was saying at the beginning that this isn't necessarily going to be a video zeroing in on genre trends on covers, and I mentioned the weapon type of cover that you see. So I know that this falls into that, but I think it kind of takes it a step further. They have really similar colors on them, that kind of darker blue, gray, almost like a gunmetal type of color. And they're both sort of cool toned blues. There's not really much warmth in there. They have a similar placement for the author's names up at the top. And both of them, even the person holding the weapon, while not exactly the same, there is some kind of, ornamentation with their sleeve or almost like armor type of thing that they're wearing on their arms. And so it's at first glance, it's hard to tell that those aren't at least within the same series or that they're completely different books. Obviously, the angle of the swords is different. And then obviously on the hilt of the one, there's a little bit more elaboration with the details there. And I actually do really like the details there. I don't dislike either of these covers. I do think that they are not the most unique. They don't have that much flair and they do run the risk of getting mixed up with one another, but they're not the worst. I think they just both have that King Arthur look to them, and sadly they had the King Arthur look plus the genre trend and similar color pattern. The next one has to do with the reprints for the Throne of Glass series. So if you didn't know, the Throne of Glass has gotten new covers for all of the books. They all go together, and I've actually seen at a bookstore these are now being placed in the adult fantasy section. I'm not sure if that's part of this new cover design, if it's supposed to then appeal to the adult readers, because a lot of people are coming to Sarah J. Maas from her ACOTAR series. They don't match ACOTAR, and they don't match the Crescent City series, but they do have a more mature adult look. They have a little bit more of a minimalistic look rather than having the main character, Selena, kind of front and center. I would like to know, do you like this new cover design before I even mention this other book? Do you like the way this looks? Do you like the font? Do you like the color choices? Do you like the way that it's not quite abstract, but the designs are not necessarily really rigid in their lines? Do you like this design or not? But regardless, it looks so similar to this other book I'm going to mention, to a point where I'm going to show you side by side this cover and Throne of Glass, but then I'm also going to show you all of the Throne of Glass covers, but I'm going to replace one of them with this book, and you'll see just how much it looks like this book belongs in this new reprint. And the book itself is called The School for Good Mothers. It's not fantasy. I don't know much about this book. It was on when I was online, I think linking stuff in the description bar of one of my videos. I saw this pop up, and I legitimately thought it was one of the Throne of Glass covers because the font style is so similar. It's really similar. The R's look really similar where they have sort of a bump as it curves in. The color choices for the text, while obviously not exactly the same, they do kind of fall into a same color palette where they're somewhat muted. They're not extremely bold and vibrant. And the same can be said for the colors overall. I think the new Throne of Glass covers, they utilize a lot of different colors, but they don't do it in a way that it is, like I was just saying, really vivid and vibrant. They're not pastel either. They fall kind of somewhere in the middle, and I would say that this other cover does as well. And then it doesn't help that both Throne of Glass and this cover have this arch. The one on Throne of Glass is, of course, more narrow, but still the shape itself is similar, and it's roughly a similar size and placement on the cover. So I thought this one was especially interesting to note because it's not within the same genre at all, and it doesn't fall into what I was describing with the first ones where it's pulling from genre trends. Neither of these really fall into that, and yet somehow they still look almost exactly the same. Before showing the actual covers for this next one, I do want to address the idea of a specific kind of art style that you'll see from a cover artist. And when you see it across different covers and you can be like, that's that artist, and you can tell because the style is very distinct, and how sometimes that can be, in some people's eyes, a negative, and then for other people it can be a positive, and it depends. So there have been discussions in these styles of videos when talking about covers that look strangely alike, how sometimes the color choice, the font, the placement of the characters faces themselves, it can all start to look exactly the same, and where you previously might have really liked that style of that artist, at some point you start to feel like maybe they all look too similar. And then there are artists where you can clearly tell that's that artist because that is very much their style. I haven't seen anything else like it. I've seen no other artist do that type of cover, but from one cover to the next, they don't actually look alike. The covers are different, the color choices are different, but there's a style that you can't help but love, and that is where this next one goes. It's basically just me fangirling over this artist because I think their style is beautiful. They brought you some of the most beautiful covers that you probably saw in bookstores last year. Anybody else who does cover appreciation videos or does editions videos or best covers of the year, those types of videos, you probably saw this artist in any of those. And I'm going to show various different pieces that they've done. I'm also going to have them linked so you can check them out because really their artwork is amazing. So I'm going to start with The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea, the US edition. This cover blew me away in that it used colors I would have never thought would look good together. It utilized color combinations that I don't think are most people's first choices when they think, oh yeah, that'll look pretty, because there's this sort of green yellow that is not on its own probably a very pretty color or a color that people look at and go, oh, I like that. I would paint my walls that, or I want decor that looks like that. So you're already taking an individual color that's difficult and you're pairing it with so many other things. You have pinks in here, you have pretty blues, different shades of blue, you've got some reddish orange mixed in. All of it's somewhat muted, but all so delicious, so vivid and beautiful and stunning. And I love it. I love it. And the characters themselves are drawn somewhat abstract, and I couldn't get enough. And then I was noticing, I was like, this other cover reminds me of that. And the more I looked at some of my favorite covers from last year, the more I realized, oh, it's the same artist. That's why. So a good example is the reprints of the series, the Graceling series. Same artist. And once you know that and you compare the covers, you're like, oh, that makes sense. They, again, utilize interesting colors. They make bold, creative decisions. And their art is a little abstract. And the way the characters are drawn is kind of simplistic yet striking. And so that's a good example. But there's more. So the city inside. How beautiful is this cover? I think that this one's a little bit more... I think the colors used are deeper colors, but I saw that and I'm like, is that the same artist? Because I think it might be. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to look at some of my favorite covers and see. And sure enough, the US edition of Daughter of the Moon Goddess, same artist. Strike the Zither, same artist. They are so talented. They, again, to hit the point I was getting at before, they have a distinct style. It's a recognizable style, but from one cover to the next, it looks different. And I want them to just sell an art book. Do they have an art book? I need to look into this. I just want to flip through all their beautiful pieces. I absolutely love it. I feel like if you look at all the covers, it's hard to even choose which one you would like the most because they all are so, so stunning. So this is not that it's necessarily a negative inherently to say covers look alike. It's hard when you only have so much space and you're probably given specific guidelines as to what you need to include on the cover and the imagery that is being asked of you if you are an artist. So it's hard to not have things overlap and look kind of similar sometimes. That said, I still wanted to pinpoint my appreciation specifically for this artist because I feel like they're almost like transforming the types of art that we see on covers, and I'm all for it, and I want to see more of it. Next up, we have not just 2 books to compare with each other, but rather a number of books that all kind of fall within a new trend that I've noticed. So trends aren't necessarily always bad, they're not necessarily always things to be really critical of, and sometimes they're completely harmless, and sometimes we're all for it and we like the look. A good example is, I had pointed out before, there was a trend of horror books with flowers on the cover. So you see a lot of those covers where maybe a person's eyes are replaced by flowers and there's vines wrapping around a person. And while that can get redundant, it does signal the kind of book that you're getting, and while sometimes they're too similar, other times there are still creative things done. This next one though, it feels to me a little lazy. So the trend is when you see a story where the main character is a Black woman, where you just get a Black woman's profile as the main focus of the cover, which I am glad we are finally actually seeing people of color on covers. But it'd be nice if the covers had some variety and that it didn't feel like, oh, that's the only notable thing about this book, because it's a lot. So here's an example of Girl with the Louding Voice. You have that one. Here's an example with River, Sing Me Home. A similar pose, and then you have Take My Hand, once again, a similar look. There is a reprint of the book Kindred by Octavia Butler, and I do actually quite like this cover, but it is, once again, it is the same almost exact size and imagery. And then you have, there was I don't know if it was specifically for the paperback, but the original cover of the book Sorrowland I thought was interesting. I really liked the look of it. It had something spooky to it. It seemed like it was a little bit of horror. It seemed like it was a little bit of fantasy, maybe even some sci-fi mixed in. It somehow captured all of that within its cover, and then they reprinted it, and what did they do? They gave it the same look as all the rest of these. None of these covers on their own look bad. I think a lot of these are actually really, really pretty. But I feel bad for cover artists and cover designers because I can only imagine if this is your profession, you're given the same direction. I know it's not going to be the exact same cover artist for each of these, but I just mean cover designers and artists. It feels like they are being told the exact same thing anytime this is the type of character that is centered in the book. And it frustrates me because if you look at the ones I was just complimenting, where it's the exact same cover artist, but look at the differences from one book to the next. And look at how they position the characters and how that captures the feeling. Like something like Daughter of the Moon Goddess, where I've talked about it before, maybe I read into it too much, maybe I'm pulling symbolism that's not really there, but I think in Daughter of the Moon Goddess, obviously the moon is up here, and she has this sense of looking forward, but that's always in her sights because she is the daughter of the moon goddess and she wants to do what she can to help free her mother from being in isolation in her moon kingdom. And so that's in her mind, but she's among these other celestial beings in the meantime. And so all of that's captured so beautifully. And then you contrast that to something like The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea, and the way her dress goes into what feels like the sea. So it's like part of her and where she's going. You see the red thread of fate in the cover very subtly. You see this mysterious boy in the background behind her, and it's almost like shrouded in shadow, which is very symbolic of what's going on in the story. And then you see, I don't probably need to continue, but you see time and time again where you can have this similar art style, or you can have maybe similar direction, but there's something different you can do with it. And with these, it feels lazy. So I was saying before that just because covers have a similar look or trend doesn't inherently make it a negative thing, but whoever is giving direction for these, maybe come up with something, or let the cover artists go with whatever they see with it. You know, let them have artistic vision, because a lot of these cover artists are amazing, and I don't know who's coming up with the designs for these, but they deserve to be varied up a little bit, I think. Last for today, we have Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell? I've been told it's both. And then Ordinary Monsters. So this is one where Ordinary Monsters had been nominated in the Goodreads nominees, and every single time I would consider getting it and I would go to my local used bookstore, I would see Jonathan Strange and I'd be like, oh, there it is. And I'm like, wait, no, that's a different book. And I always get them mixed up. And this one just is that the image of the bird is almost identical and the rest of the cover is quite simple. It's just black, and in the one case it's just black and white, and the other one at least has a little bit of other color in there, but they are not particularly elaborate covers. There's not a whole lot going on, but they're not unique and bold in their simplicity. They're just kind of basic, and they both happen to be basic in almost the exact same way. Has anybody else ever mixed up these books because these covers look so much alike? I'd be very curious. Anyway, that's it for today. I would love to know, what are some book covers that you have noticed look really, really similar, or what are some book covers that you literally thought it was the same book or a book within the same series? Were there any of the ones that I mentioned that you have noticed as well?
A big thank you again to GlassesUSA.com for working with me on today's video. Don't forget that you can get a great exclusive discount on top of any coupon code that they have for the next 24 hours just for you by clicking on the link at the top of my description bar.
Thanks so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you later. Bye.